Every civilization was built off the back of a disposable workforce, but I can only make so many. Shh. Happy birthday. Every once in a while, you have a sequel that not only measures up to the original film, but surpasses it in many ways. Whether it be Terminator 2 Judgment Day, The Dark Knight, Mad Max Fury Road, The Empire Strikes Back, or The Godfather Part 2. Blade Runner 2049 joins the ranks of these films. Hello, my name is Frederick Lopez, and today I have a very special analysis review of Blade Runner 2049. I have a non-spoiler movie review on my channel from when the film first came out. That is available in the link below, as well as my retro review of Blade Runner and my action reaction of Soldier from 1998. Blade Runner 2049, of course, is a sequel to the cult classic Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott. And Blade Runner was based on a novel called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. Yes, the same Philip K. Dick who did Scanner Darkly, Minority Report, and the basis for what ended up being Total Recall. Now, Blade Runner didn't really leave me blown away, or should I say enthused, like those films. Blade Runner, I thought, was an okay film, but there's many people who love and adore the film, and I respect that. I can see Blade Runner's influence on pulp culture. Blade Runner has influenced a plethora of films, whether it be The Crow, Highlander to the Quickening, Batman 1989, The Fifth Element, the anime Ghost in the Shell, and so many other films. Blade Runner was not a success. It opened the same time that E.T. opened up in theaters. And in 1982, The Thing by John Carpenter and Blade Runner by Ridley Scott were two films that were very well done, but that were just basically obscure through the release of E.T. And over the course of years, it actually has gotten a cult following. A director's cut was released in theaters and on video. The theatrical cut wasn't very well done, as should I say, the director's or final cut of the film. More than 30 years after its release, Blade Runner has finally had a sequel, and that is Blade Runner 2049. This time with Denis Villeneuve directing the film. I was a fan of Villeneuve from Prisoners, Arrival, and his work in Sicario. I really like his films. He has a really great eye and has a really keen sense of story and direction, and putting that with a beautiful setting over the action, putting that over the stylization. He puts characters and story first, unlike so many other films. So I was curious to see what he would do with Blade Runner 2049. And it's one of those films where I really enjoyed. It may have not had like the pacing or just quickness of the original film, but this film takes its time to develop not only the settings, but the characters. It's a very rare gem of a film. It's almost like a fine wine that just ages better and better the older it gets, the more I see it. And any great film gets better the more you see it. I've seen it about probably 6 or 7 times now after it's been out on Blu-ray, and I really love it. Of course, it takes place 30 years after the original, and you have to catch up on 3 short films to fill in the blanks. You have Blackout. Blackout takes place in 2022, and it's pretty much after the first film. It shows how the replicants have a revolution, the human replicant war, and how the records were wiped, the blackout that happens, and the bomb that was unleashed. So it sets up the events of what you see in Blade Runner 2049 and why it's so important to have a good relationship between the replicants and humans. Then you get another one that's in 2036 with Jared Leto's character of Neander Wallace, and it shows you how he creates a new replicant that's much more sophisticated and obeys human command. It no longer has a free mind of its own, and he pretty much petitions to have replicants back. He ends up solving the world hunger crisis, and of course buys out Tyrell Corporation. So it sets up why he's in a certain place and why he's over the replicants, over what used to be Tyrell Corporation. Then we have another short with Dave Bautista as Sapper Morton. And it's cool. It's a very nice little vignette of his character, and it ultimately shows you how he came back on the grid and why he's on the run, and why Ryan Gosling is at his house at the beginning of the film. And I love that scene when Agent K meets Sapper Morton. I love the tension between both characters with the pot of garlic going on the stove. It creates a mood of intensity between both characters, and Sapper Morton ultimately realizing that he has been found. Three very well done shorts, and I'm not going to go over the whole plot. Instead, I'm going to break it down to go over what I really love about the film. Again, this has massive amounts of spoilers, so only if you've seen the film, watch the rest of this video. Let's start with the acting. I love Ryan Gosling as Agent K/Joe. He really conveys a lot with emotions, with his eyes, and that's very well done. It's almost, again, like a film noir character. He has done this in numerous films like Only God Forgives or Drive. I love his performance in this, and you really do believe that he's the child. He makes you believe he's the child he thinks he is. And of course, there is a moment of crossroads for the character, and ultimately asks the question, what does it mean to be human? Harrison Ford is great as Rick Deckard. Of course, he doesn't have that big of a screen time, but the plot is still very integral to his character, and others in the original film. You have Ana de Armas as Joy. I like her as this hologram girl. She pretty much embodies everything that makes up the emotion joy. And we have a standout here with Sylvia Hoeks as Love. She is cold, calculating, and ruthless. She really makes the film, but it really shows you a play on emotions with the word love and how it is. And ultimately, it's something that's always true, but never warm and nice. Say as Joy. It's something that's always there, always true, but sometimes cold. You just never know. And I like that element of both characters, really playing upon the words of joy and love. Another interesting thing with Jared Leto as Neander Wallace is he's blind. It's kind of a callback to when Tyrell lost his eyes, but again, it almost creates this omnipresent, godlike feeling with the character. He's even introduced in a dark room, talking about Angel and the heavens. So there's definitely a metaphor there. And also, the water elements kind of create a womb-like feeling, and that's where the replicants are created. Such a ruthless scene when he kills the replicant. I just love the acting there and his emotion, and ultimately why Love is his favorite angel, the best angel of them all. And he named her. There's a great callback with Ryan Gosling and her, where she talks to him, and he's like, he must care for you that he gave you a name. And that was something very interesting in the film. You also have Robin Wright as Lieutenant Joshi. She's afraid that this information of the bones and android-human hybrid will get out into the open and cause all-out war. She just wants to preserve law and order. But then again, there's a certain kind of cold, robotic nature to her, and it shows you, again, what defines human beings, you know? The humans in this act more cold than Agent K or Joy at times. And it makes you wonder, what is human? Sometimes the androids are what Tyrell said in the original film, more human than human. Then you also have Mackenzie Davis as Mariette and Hayam Yabas as Freza. They're with this replicant resistance, but Mackenzie Davis's character of Mariette is pretty much kind of like a prostitute character. She also reminds me a lot of Daryl Hannah from the original film, of Pris. And I like that scene there of like Joy wanting to feel emotions, so she uses her as a vessel during their makeout scene. So crazy how they did the visual effects with the hands, but yeah, that was one interesting scene in the film, to say the least. But the acting is superb by all the characters, and I like what each character embodies in the script. But most of all, with Rick Deckard, I like how it all ties in to the original Blade Runner, whether it be the set of bones, which I kind of thought was Rachel because he had the brunette hair there. It looked very much like Sean Young's in the original. But then you also had the Tyrell Corporation baseline test from the original film with the eyes. I love that with Rick Deckard and her talking from the original film. Wallace shows Harrison Ford's character this as well. And they really play upon the continuity error of the original film with green eyes. I just thought it was amazing seeing Sean Young in a CGI way. We've gone from Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy to Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator Genisys to then Grand Moff Tarkin, Princess Leia, and now Rachel. So it's very interesting seeing the progression of CGI and making actors look young. This one was the first time where it appeared very realistic and just scary, but they spend a lot of time on this. But again, I like how they play around with the colors of gray, blue, and orange, water-like elements. Again, the more cold, robotic nature of the film and settings are set with orange, whether it be a dead, desolate Las Vegas that got bombed. The underground areas, Wallace Corporation, how it looks. And then you have more blue moments with Ryan Gosling. You have him enjoy that scene where she's basically allowed to roam out of the hologram room for the first time and is touching the rain. Is such a powerful moment, and again, a nice callback to the Tears in the Rain moment in the original, as well as the end of the film, but I'll get to that in a bit. I love that moment of them experiencing this, and it shows you that you do not have to be human to have human experiences to live. The set design is really well done, and I like how it's gray in the other moments that are outside, and certain moments where he's kind of not sure of who he is, whether it be the memory bank, the farm, the junkyard area. They really play upon color schemes and emotions and symbolism in this film. And again, with the blue moment, you have that purple area with Joy. And I love how she says, "You're a good Joe." It has everything you want to see, everything you want to hear. She tells him what he needs to hear, but also this sets him off because in this moment, he realizes that's not the Joy from earlier that Love killed. No, this is a different Joy, and that just tears him apart. That's when he decides to do the unthinkable and actually help Rick Deckard out. I love that moment because the replicant resistance wants him to basically kill Deckard. The police want him to do something. He is something that's just kind of an outcast. And you really get to see the prejudice against replicants at the beginning of the film, whether it be his apartment or at the police station, where they call him like a fucking skin job and stuff like that. You really get to see that conveyed very well. And I just love that moment towards the end of the film when you see that emotion from Ryan Gosling. He knows what he must do. And it goes back to the theme of what defines humanity, what makes you a human being. Sapper Morton telling him, "You've never seen a miracle, you're just happy scraping the shit." And it shows Frezza telling Kay, the most human thing one can do is die for a noble cause. And that's what he does, basically. And I love it. I love the themes that are present throughout this film. And unlike most sequels, this actually builds upon everything from the original, and in return makes the original an even better film with this strong sequel. You almost don't need to watch the original to see this film, but I highly recommend it because it makes this film even stronger. You're going to get the beats and everything. It's kind of like Hustler to Color of Money. Sure, you can watch the second one, they're unrelated, but it'd be better to see what experiences the older actor had in the previous film, the older characters, to really get this and go through the emotions and what it means to them. I also like the themes. Despite what it means to be human, it shows you what happens when humanity is lost, whether it be through the disjointed music, the way the humans act, more cold at times, compared to, say, the replicants or holograms. How everyone is tied to technology, and we see that now with iPhones and everything. This is a very possible future still. And that's one brilliant thing that Denis Villeneuve did, is tie this to the modern day without really basing it off modern day. This is more of a continuation of like, what if the technology and advancements of the 1980s continued without the internet? And that's what Blade Runner presents. I still like how corporations own a lot of things. You have product placement everywhere, the city's design, and it shows you that this is an even more dark and grim future than the one presented in 2019. From the original Blade Runner. Back to Harrison Ford. I love how he fights Agent K. They set up all these things, but most of all, I like his confrontation with Neander Wallace. That is such a powerful scene. He's messing with him. You still don't know if Deckard's a replicant or not. It could go either way, and I'm glad they do not answer that. It's still ambiguous. And I love that moment of when Rachel first arrives, and you see Harrison Ford's emotion, Deckard, just devastated, remembering the time he first met her at Tyrell Corp. And I love it how they played upon that continuity error from the original Blade Runner when he tells Neander Wallace she had green eyes. It's also very cool because Neander Wallace thought he had this brilliant plan and Deckard just flat out pisses him off. They shoot her. For a split second, it seems like Deckard doesn't do much. But in reality, it hurts even more remembering that. When he just like shakes a bit when they shoot her. That is such a powerful moment because he does feel something. Even though it's not as apparent, it's still more emotion than the other characters, the other human characters. The same way back at the memory bank, you have his daughter, the memory doctor. And when she saw that memory, you thought it was Kay's memory, but no, she cried because it was her memory. And she says every artist puts a bit of themselves in their own work, and that is such a brilliant scene. You really saw the emotion there. And it's kind of sad that this woman who's been secluded is more sympathetic to emotions and memories than some people from the outside world. But on the same token, even though she's human, she doesn't experience real things. You have that scene towards the end of the film when Deckard meets her and she's playing with a hologram of the snow. And there's a great sense of irony that she's playing with a hologram, yet Kay is a replicant and he's feeling the real snow outside. So it really shows you that it doesn't matter what your origin is. There's ways of living in this world, and even though she's human, she doesn't get to live, say, like Kay the replicant. And I find that kind of touching and just all around ironic. The film does have a similar ending to Drive, but it's such a powerful moment with Deckard meeting his daughter face to face. I love that. I love that whole backstory. And when I first saw this, I thought she looked a bit like Sean Young, but I wasn't sure how they're going to play it, whether it be Kay, it'd be her, or were there really two with a brother and sister. I just wasn't sure. There's a lot of parallels too, whether it be the end scene and the Tears in the Rain. You have that theme they're playing from Tears in the Rain in the original film when Batty died. Ryan Gosling's Kay is going down. You also have similar themes to the Blade Runner theme when he comes across the horse. That scene with the revelation of that memory being real. So there's certain nods and homages to the original. We also get to see Edward James Olmos back, reprising his role from the original in a small way, still making origami animals, but it was very touching. I love the themes of what it means to be a human being, what happens when humanity is lost, but what happens when we decide to do the right thing, what exactly makes us human, what is the line there that defines humanity. And Blade Runner 2049 presents that in a grand fashion. I can understand why people may not like this film. Some people may consider it the most expensive art house film ever made, but I respect it. Not that much CGI. It's built with practical sets, but Denis Villeneuve remembers to put story and characters before effects and action, and that's what makes the action scenes and everything else greater, because it all serves the story in Blade Runner 2049. I love it. I love this film. My only con, again, is I wish that Rick Deckard was in it more and that certain moments moved a bit faster, but the more you watch this, all the scenes are necessary. It adds to the flavor and just overall feeling and enjoyment of the film. Again, each character represents different things. I love how they bridge the gap. I love how it's Agent K's story. A lot of movies just rip off the plot and bring you a nice homage of the original, or just do something completely different. This film builds upon everything from the original film, but it really stands on its own. Like many other great sequels in this world, it stands on its own and basically builds from what the first one started. And that's why I give Blade Runner 2049 an A+ and a 4.5 out of 5. It's going to a 5 out of 5. That's how I feel. This is a really fantastic film. I hope it gets visual effects at the Oscars. I'm glad Denis Villeneuve was nominated at the BAFTA. But yeah, cinematography and visual effects should definitely get it. This has to be some of the best cinematography I have seen. The set design, the way it looks, the scope of it is just epic. Everything set up in this world has such nuance and subtlety. Who could forget that part where he fights love? That was an intense fight. The seawall scene was fantastic with the music. The music by Hans Zimmer is very well done. Again, mirroring the first movie, it just hooks you in. You have a spin-off of Soldier from 1998. You can see some off-world junk vehicles from Soldier in the film. It's such a rich and unique universe that is just so great, and I really hope they don't make another one. They say they will. The only thing that I kind of don't like is a whole replicant revolution thing. That was a bit too much, but with just Deckard and just this film, I'm happy with it ending on Blade Runner 2049. This was a complete story if you watch the first film and the second, and such a great cycle, a great arc for Rick Deckard and the character of Joe, Agent K. So that's just my quick little analysis of Blade Runner 2049 with spoilers. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have seen Blade Runner 2049, I'm assuming you have since you're watching this, let me know what you thought of the film. Honestly, in the comments below, let me know what you thought of Blade Runner 2049. That does it for this analysis review. I hope you liked this video. Comment and subscribe for more videos.